For this episode, we're going to be talking about Project Hail Mary, and we have Roya with us. How you doing, Roya?
I'm great. I'm so excited.
This is one that I've been really looking forward to as well. This goes back to a year ago that you had told me to get started with this book and the audiobook by Ray Porter, which that guy just himself. Can we just pause for a moment on Ray Porter?
Absolutely. I think is my favorite narrator, and I'm a big audiobook fan. He just did such a phenomenal job with the audio of Andy Weir's book, and I think it really played a big part in what put the whole book on the map. I mean, obviously the writing is phenomenal. And Andy Weir is king of hard science fiction with all the research he does. But yeah, this story was perfect, and then Ray Porter just took it to the next level. So I was nervous to see the movie because it was just such a good book and audiobook. I was like, I hope they do it justice. And I feel like they did.
Warning to listeners, by the way, there are some spoilers coming up. So if you've not read or listened to the book and seen the movie, there's some big spoilers coming up ahead. Besides the relationship of Grace and Rocky, sometimes the science stuff was really, really dense. And that was something that threw me off a little bit at times, but it's still such a fun story that I didn't care too much.
Yeah, and I think physically reading this book and any hard science fiction book is going to be more challenging and feel more dense for someone who's not super into those topics already. For a science nerd, it's absolutely heaven. And I feel like when I did physically read the majority of this book once through, and I also struggled with some of the science part. But listening to it, for me, Ray Porter made it come to life and made it really interesting. I am not a physics or chemistry person, or definitely astroscience, any of that aerospace science. Those are definitely not my best subjects. I actually felt like I was learning a lot without it being boring or challenging. I actually feel like Andy Weir did a great job bringing it to life. And then Ray Porter, the way that he narrated the story really made it fun. So yeah, I enjoyed the hard science fiction aspects of it.
Let me ask you first, the ratings, your book rating, and then the movie rating.
Yeah, the book is absolutely, usually books we do out of 5 stars. This book is a 6-star book for me. So it's a book that will forever be one of my favorites. I will recommend to absolutely anyone and everyone, especially the audio form. So yeah, it's an all-time favorite book for me. For the movie, I would give it, I'd say 9.5. There were just a couple things that threw me off, but I also think that I need to watch it again to maybe understand some of the choices that were made for those things that threw me off. And it was actually, strangely, they were song choices. There were 2 songs early on, I think, in the movie that had me confused. There was it seemed like there was a mismatch between the vibe and the emotion of the song with what was happening on screen. And I just had my head tilted to the side. What's happening? I feel like the director was very intentional. Brian Gosling was very intentional as a producer for this and everything that they did. So I think I need to go back and watch it again. But it was a phenomenal movie. What did you think?
Yeah, for the book, I give it also flawless rating. And I totally get when you and everybody would say that after finishing it, you would want to either reread it or re-listen to it again. Just people, I know there's that level of enthusiasm for the book, and I totally get it. The positivity, well, I definitely want to get more into that, but the positivity of the book is really infectious. A couple quick things. I just want to mention some of the names involved. So the directors, that's Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. These directors, they're known for 2 series of movies. One is the Jump Street movies, the 21 and 22 Jump Street movies. And if you have not seen these 2, I'm telling you, if you want to laugh your ass off, you need to watch these movies. Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill are 2 of the funniest goofballs you will ever see on screen together. They are so great. 21 Jump Street is funny, and then 22 just builds on it. The other one is the Spider-Verse movies. These are the animated Spider-Man movies, which are visually phenomenal. And then for the producer, of course, it's the star as well, Ryan Gosling. And he apparently said he's been working on this movie for 5 to 6 years. He acquired the manuscript from Andy Weir before it was published. Like, that's crazy.
I want to know more about that. I wonder if he has like a relationship with Andy Weir and knew that he was going to be writing something like this. How does one even go about doing that to get the rights before the book even comes out?
Probably through his representation. I'm not sure if he's represented by the agency CAA or William Morris. They have definitely very close relationships with the publishers and with authors. And I'm assuming that the genre was something that maybe Gosling was a fan of. And for him, I know like he's been producing movies for a little while, and talk about a home run. Like this for him, not just by the way for Gosling, even for Amazon, this is their first huge hit of a movie. If this is a sample of what he and Amazon are each capable of doing, I hope they work together more. This was unreal.
Definitely. And I've seen some stuff online about there being a confirmed sequel, which is being written right now. And that is really exciting.
I hope that Amazon and everybody just stays out of the way of Andy Weir. Let him do his thing, let him write. I'm hoping it's not like a studio saying, here's how we want it, because that'll ruin the magic.
Yeah, I feel like Andy Weir, because of the way that he writes hard science fiction, because of the meticulousness of his method, the way that he really makes everything perfect, like that, he needs that for his writing. I feel like he will stay true to that and write his own story and then give it to them.
An interesting thing with this movie, Andy Weir, when he wrote The Martian, had the screenwriter named Drew Goddard adapt it. Now, in this movie, it's the same pairing. You have Andy Weir as the author, but the screenwriter who adapted his script is Drew Goddard again. Also, the movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 36 minutes. I think any other film that would border on testing people's patience, but the whole thing is so fun and entertaining. Do you know what the original cut, though, was that they tested on?
I saw it was like 3.5 hours.
3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And they tested it to a bunch of directors and actors and producers. And they're like, yeah, dude, we love this, but you need to cut an hour at least out of this movie.
Yeah.
So when I hear stuff like that, like they need to cut stuff out of it, I'm like, what if it was a series? You wouldn't need to cut out anything. I hate when they have to cut out stuff.
That's the hard thing about adapting any kind of book to a movie rather than a series. You definitely miss some stuff, but for putting something that was, let's see, how many hours was that audiobook actually? Let me just pull this up real quick. Yeah, so the audiobook is 16 hours long, and that's at 1 time speed. So let's say you put it at 2 times speed, which is closer to actual talking speed. 8 hours. So then to condense 8 hours of a story into 2.5 is impressive. They did a great job. Did you know that Ryan Gosling was alone for 100 days while filming this movie on the spaceships and connected to wires and stuff? And the only communication he really had was the actors. They were playing Rocky, like puppeteers that were doing Rocky in his voice. He had them in his ear and otherwise was like alone for 100 days to film. But I think that's amazing and dedicated work.
Yeah, I didn't know about the isolation. I do remember from some interviews him saying that he said there's a special place in hell for those who set up wired rigs and working, because he hated that so much. Like it was so physically demanding. Gosling has had such an extensive career, but this I'm sure is probably the most physically taxing movie that he did. Love the book, perfect rating. And for the movie, it's at least a 9 out of 10. Considering that it has to be in movie form and some stuff has to be cut, and they have to streamline some things. I'm with you. I think like they did it really well. The only things I'm knocking it for are the things that they cut that I love from the book.
Yeah, same. The pieces that were cut from the book, if you try to take your knowledge of the story out of it and just look at the movie, those pieces aren't necessary, actually, for the movie to be incredible. Yeah, I think someone who hadn't read it and just watched the movie wouldn't have no notes at all.
One thing I wanted to mention in particular, I have been for the longest time pessimistic about how the theater audience is declining and the business has not been as healthy. But I see one area that's a bright spot, and that's that if the movie industry just really focuses on adaptations, they go after the book audience. Look at some of these movies that have come out. Project Hail Mary, and then the other one that I am extremely excited for at the end of this year is Dune. And the last Dune, just like Project Hail Mary, cost 200 million and it made over 700 million. Some other books that have been adapted, like Wuthering Heights. That one is also right now, I think it cost them 80 million and they've made up to 240 million. Books might be the area that could really save the film industry.
I agree. And I think so many people are avid readers. And when a book comes out that the avid readers love so much that we talk about it and push it out and try to get everyone to read it, and it becomes really big, and then that gets turned into a movie, there's already just such a huge fan base of people that's dying to see it, and then that trickles into everybody else and people who don't read and just watch movies. There's this big buzz about it, so it just brings everybody in. Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think phenomenal writers that are putting good books out are going to be a big part of the movie industry and bigger moving forward. It's exciting.
And I've started doing this now where if a book is getting buzz, I am right away looking into seeing, okay, are any of the big producers or film people looking to buy the rights and make it into a movie? I'm looking like, all right, is Ryan Gosling going to buy the sci-fi thing? Is Reese Witherspoon optioning something? Oprah Winfrey? And by the way, those are just a few names. There's so many people now. I feel like it's catching on more and more that you're going to have more actors, actresses, everyone doing this. There was another book. I was going to ask if you'd read it called Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. Have you heard of this
Hmm.
one?
Yes, I read it.
And so that one already now they're going to make it into a movie. So I'm excited for that one. And that's one like this where I want to read the book first or listen to it and then see the movie.
Interesting. Yeah, that book had a decent amount of buzz around it, but I actually didn't really understand why when I read it. I guess it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me, but I
Hmm.
would totally watch the movie because it could be one of those things. Sometimes if the book version isn't for you, the movie version could be. That's always cool when that happens. So
Hmm.
yeah, I would totally watch it.
This movie, though, in particular, Project Hail Mary, the budget of it was enormous. Also, about a $200 million movie. So I was kind of worried from the start. I'm like, all right, even if this is a great movie, that's a tall order. Again, really, I cannot emphasize enough how pessimistic I've been about the theater experience right now. But we're only into the third week of its release, $200 million budget. It has already made back globally $420 million. It's well on its way to being profitable. I don't think there's anything to worry about. But listener, this is the part now where we're going to get into some spoilers. Okay, so just again, if you haven't read or listened or seen the book or movie, it's just a heads up. We're going to get into some stuff now. Roya, how did you feel that the movie handled Rocky?
I absolutely loved the way that they physically made Rocky look. In my head, he definitely looked scarier and more kind of spider-like. They made a rock cute. And I love the voice actor. I don't know his name. The voice actor that did Rocky did such a good job. Some of my favorite parts actually were just the dialogue between Rocky and Grace. Some of it was actually ad-libbed, I found out. Like the part
Mhm.
where Rocky asks Grace about his mate, or about like his last partner, and Grace says,
Right.
"Oh, she left me for this guy named Mark." And Rocky goes, "Rocky hate Mark." And there was an audible laugh in the movie theater for that part. I thought that was so cute. The way that they brought Rocky to life, I thought was absolutely perfect. I think it's really hard to create a being of any kind that is faceless. There are no facial features on this alien, on this being. They made him cute. They made him very emotionally expressive with his movements and, of course, with his musical voice. He was so cute. Oh my God. I want like a stuffed Rocky for my house.
I think it was part of this whole thing where Ryan Gosling is saying, why do we have to make things so dark and gloomy or whatever? Why can't we make it friendly, optimistic? He wanted to make this for something his kids could enjoy. I thought that was amazing. Or as Rocky would say, amaze, amaze, amaze. So,
Amaze, amaze, amaze.
the tone of being optimistic, this movie, it's something that I really, really enjoyed. It made me think of the TV show Ted Lasso in a similar kind of way. Like that show and this movie came out in times where I feel like people need it. When there's a change once in a while, like this, it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's like apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic and dystopian themes and settings for stories and movies are becoming more and more popular. Ryan Gosling was saying we're seeing so much of this now that it's making it feel like it's this inevitability, which is true. It can have that effect on
Yeah.
people's psychology. And this story in this movie is about a potential apocalypse, but it's the way that it's done where, it's not this big, scary monster thing that is coming after Earth. It's this tiny, microscopic, an alien that's microscopic. There's nothing visually scary about it, but it's eating the sun, which we need to survive. It poses a total threat of apocalypse for Earth, but it doesn't have that same kind of scary aspect to it, which again makes it kind of a more kid friendly storyline. And then people do come together, and you have the Strat character who's given power and authority over everything to make international alliances and bring resources together to do whatever it takes for them to solve this problem for Earth. That also is beautiful
Mm.
to see and very optimistic view of how we would respond to a situation like that. And then, of course, the fact that it has a happy ending, a phenomenal ending. It's nice to have that genre still be what it is, but have it actually have a happy outcome and still be very emotional.
I remember when Gosling was on Drew Barrymore's show and was saying, like, I remember when your movie E.T., it's like we want to like have something like that again, where it's why does it have to be this like super scary thing? And when you were talking about Strat and how she had the authority to pool resources and make these alliances, Neil deGrasse Tyson, when he was talking about Andy Weir's previous movie, The Martian, he said that he liked all the science in it, that it focused on the accuracy and just that intelligence is a good thing. But he said that the one most unrealistic thing of this movie is that if we had to try to save one astronaut, trying to get the world's governments to come together to work on anything would never happen. The thing that I love is that Andy Weir will still make these stories in this way because he's trying to say, okay, yeah, maybe that is the reality, but I want to write a story where I can show another way. What if they work together? What if yeah.
And honestly, I think the fact that this story now exists and hopefully more stories are written in that format where we do all come together to solve a problem, because if any situation like that ever were to arise, that is what would need to happen. If there are stories that
Mhm.
show that it could happen and that it's possible, that actually has an impact on the world, the views of leaders who would make these decisions. It becomes an idea that can become real. I actually think that
Mm.
media has some of the biggest power to create change and bring new ideas and new possibilities to the table. And that is like a really big zoom out perspective that this story and this movie can provide on a like global scale.
What I felt went so well with his writing and with this positivity and creating that emotional relationship with Grace and Rocky. I got to talk about Gosling for a second. And what contributes to the emotional stuff is his amazing comedic timing. Throughout the movie, he is so great. And he even said, like, I would try to study Charlie Chaplin, and the goofball effect played so well into this.
I agree. And I was really skeptical when I first heard that he was going to be playing Grace, just because of the character in my head that I had for him. And it was hard for me to picture Ryan Gosling being that really smart, gets down on himself and doesn't take himself seriously, and also really funny, goofy, nerdy guy. It was hard for me to picture him doing that, and that was something that I was a little bit nervous about, like how good of a job is he going to do. By the end of that movie, I absolutely, like, the previous version of the character that was in my head was gone, and I just, like, I see Ryan Gosling's character as Grace, and I think he did such a good job.
To go along with that, I have two Gosling movie recommendations. One is the movie called Crazy Stupid Love with Emma Stone. That movie is very, very funny. And then another one that is kind of this surprise movie that just came out of nowhere. It's called The Nice Guys, and it's with Russell Crowe. That movie in particular is kind of a throwback to the buddy cop movies. It's very gritty and very funny. These two guys play off of each other very well with their comedic timing. So The Nice Guys and Crazy Stupid Love. Definitely recommend checking those two out. But now I want to ask, is the film very different from the source material, the good ways and the bad ways of that you observed?
I thought that the movie stays very true to the book. Like we said, they definitely had to cut things out, and none of it was anything that was pivotal that needed to be in there. I think they did a great job being selective, but it definitely stayed true to the book. And then there were some parts that were ad-libbed, parts that were different and new that I actually think added to the story and made it better for a visual adaptation. One of my favorite parts is when Grace goes out into space. They're in the middle of the Petrova line. You just see the cinematography of the red, shimmering, glittery dots that are all around him in space. That's the astrophage.
Yeah.
That was a really important piece that wasn't really in the book, but it brought one of the most beautiful cinematography shots that I've seen. And to then find out also that there was no CGI involved in that it was actually they used science to project red light onto tiny particles in the air that normally just can't be seen by the naked eye. And we're able to then capture that on film. That was so cool. I really loved that. Yeah. They really stayed true to the book in all of the most important places.
That moment you're talking about where you see the red dots of the astrophage. One cool thing with this movie, the cinematographer is the same guy, Greg Fraser from Dune, which is a visually stunning movie, like both the first and second one. When I heard he was going to be the guy doing the cinematography for Project Hail Mary, I'm like, this is going to be amazing. As far as like differences from the book to the movie, a couple things. They cut the Antarctica scene. One that maybe would have been cool to have a little bit more on was like trying to find the people with the gene that could survive the coma for when they're traveling. And then the ending where Grace actually doesn't seem to have aged as much as in the book. They say like he's a lot older in the book version, right?
Yeah, I do think that in the movie, when you see him on Tau Ceti teaching the little aliens, it seemed like not a lot of time had actually gone by, or not as much time had gone by. So in the book, it's way later, so he's aged more. With this one, it seems like the only kind of frame of time that we're given of how long they've now jumped into the future and he's been on Tau Ceti is that Rocky tells him that his ship is almost ready for him to return home. My guess is that they talked to Andy Weir. They decided that he was going to write a sequel. So they had to then bring the timeline back so that he wouldn't be 80 years old for the sequel. Right? So that I think was a strategic decision.
That was one change. And another one, the scene where Strat sees the video from Grace that he sends back, that wasn't in the book. And that was a really cool addition for the movie.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite additions as well. I really thought it was very satisfying. One, to see that all of the stuff that he sent made it to Earth, that Earth survived, but also you're watching Strat get this cheeky smile on her face, laughing at the videos that Grace has made and the jokes that he's making and everything that he's saying. It almost feels like it repaired some of the damage done between their relationship. Because there's also this flirtatious dynamic between Grace and Strat that wasn't in the book at all. And I kind of liked that. It was very subtle. But of course, when Grace realizes, when the last piece of memory clicks into place and he realizes that he was sent there against his will and was dragged into space. And of course, then that changes the way that he feels about Strat and mostly, of course, about himself because he realizes that he didn't volunteer for this. He was dragged there. And so he's not some like brave hero. And that changes the way he sees himself. But seeing her watch him, he's been making these videos assuming that she's going to be the one that sees it. And then getting to see her reaction, it was really nice and definitely satisfying.
I've seen like some clips or reactions on social media where people are also saying that the movie version seems to have this flirtatious dynamic, but I don't know. I never really thought of it like that. I always thought of it more in the movie. Grace just wanted to see a more human side to Strat, show that she can be a human and not just this robotic. And I loved the scene so Gosling as producer insisted on adding that scene where Strat does the karaoke. I thought that's an amazing addition. But I don't know, like everyone, I saw a lot of comments, people saying, oh, there's this romantic undertone, there's this flirtatious thing. I'm like, I didn't see it that way. I don't know. But it's interesting. You know what I mean? Like, I love how we're all responding to it in different ways. It's what makes it such a great movie and story.
Yeah.
The book, too. And Sandra Huller is also just one of my favorite actors working today. If I know she's in something, I have to watch that movie. I have to watch that show. Yeah, she brings a lot to whatever she's working in. I'm going to say it again. Her movie from 2023 called Anatomy of a Fall. Amazing movie. Really amazing movie. Highly recommend.
I'll have to go watch that. I actually haven't seen that one.
Definitely recommending that one. But this movie, I think both the person who has read it or who hasn't read it will be very happy.
Definitely. Can I tell you another one of my favorite parts that's different? I'm pretty sure that this wasn't in the book. It's a very small detail, but it was really big for me in the movie. There's a part where the captain of the spaceship is talking to Grace, and Grace asks him, like, how, like, you have a family. What made you decide to go on this mission? And why do you think you can succeed? Something like that. The captain's response is, you have to have somebody who's worth doing this for. So he's saying, you have to love someone. There has to be someone worth you literally doing a suicide mission for to save them and the rest of the world. And we know that Grace doesn't have that. He has zero connections to anyone. And that's something that they highlight more in the movie. And then the moment where Grace realizes that Rocky is in trouble, that he's not going to make it, and he thinks that he's deciding between himself or saving Rocky, that is in that moment, Grace erasing his whiteboard of everything that he's been writing down about himself, of who am I, trying to put his memories together. And he goes into how to save Rocky. And that's the moment, I think, where you see this huge character development change, where he suddenly has someone who he loves more than himself and is willing to sacrifice himself for. I just think that was a really beautiful moment in the movie.
All of this just makes me want to see this movie again. It was really great. The fact that we got to see it in IMAX, that was just made all of this just even so much better from everything that we've gone over.
Yeah, I would go again. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Going back to thinking of our original ratings, I want to revisit now the book and the movie ratings. Book you said was 6 out of 5, and I remember for the movie you said 9.5 out of 10. Are you still standing by?
Standing by.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely still standing by for the book. It's a solid 5 out of 5 for me. And the story and Ray Porter, that guy's on my radar now. If there are more books that you know that he did that you would recommend, please let me know. I would love to check those out. And of course, he better be the one narrating the sequel.
I'm sure he will be.
He, by the way, supposedly was one of those when Grace is testing the voices in the movie. They had like Meryl Streep. He apparently was one of the test voices, and I couldn't catch it.
I didn't know that going into it, but the second time we go to watch it, I will listen for it. I bet I will recognize it because his voice is so distinct.
Yeah, and I love how I heard a story for the Meryl Streep one that Ryan Gosling did not know that she was going to be in there. And so that whole part, he ad-libbed it. It's like, she can do anything. And it worked perfectly.
Yep.
Definitely standing by the 9 out of 10 on the movie rating, and can't wait to see that one again in the theater. Project Hail Mary is playing in theaters now. I'm sure it's going to be there for at least another month or two, so highly recommend to see it in the theater.
Any movie that takes place in outer space or has a lot of flying in it, has really big, like wide shot cinematography like that, should be seen in a theater, especially. This one is so stunning. It's so beautifully shot. I said we have to see it in IMAX. This is one that's worth going to see in IMAX. So 100%.
The big screen and that amazing sound of IMAX quality sound too. And the fact that this movie is made by Amazon MGM, in a few months after it's finished its theatrical run, we can all enjoy it on Prime Video.
An important thing to let people know who haven't gone to see it in the movies or who will be seeing the movie, is to watch the credits scrolling at the end. There is not an extra scene at the end of them, but the shots of outer space that are projected are real shots taken in outer space that are so beautiful. They're so beautiful, they don't look real. They are real and worth just kind of sinking into. It's really beautiful.
Just such an amazing movie, like a really positive and great experience. Roya, I appreciate the recommendation, both for the book and then getting to see this movie a year later. It's been awesome. So big thank you.
Anytime.
Listener, we definitely hope that you do check this one out. And again, this will be one where the book and the movie, both great to experience. It's playing in the theaters now. Check it out. Let us know what you think. And as always, thank you for listening.